Good morning, it's Kate, the West Coast Paper Crafter. It is Sunday, June 30th, and this morning I am tuning in live for a sweet peas card class. So if you are crafting along, all the measurements have been posted in the Facebook event and also on my page this morning. And if you don't have the stamp set, just use whatever you have in your stash. So I'm just going to flip the camera around and we'll get started because there's 3 projects today and I don't want to keep anybody too long. So flipping the camera, close your eyes if you get dizzy. I'm just going to adjust so we can see my workspace. And I'm bringing up the live on my laptop so I can make sure that you're going to be able to see my hands. All right, everything looks good. Just going to raise the camera up just a smidge. All right, we will get started. So the first card, I'm going to use the little grumpy pea. This is the reason I bought this stamp set. He is just so grumpy and so dang adorable. So this card is fairly simple. I think the most challenging thing is just cutting out the frame, and I'll show you how I did that. But we'll get started with all the pieces. So I've got a Lost Lagoon card base. That's 5.5 by 8.5, and I've scored it at 4 1/4 on the long side. Then I've got just a piece of basic white that is 5 1/4 by 4. This will be for the inside. Hey Carissa, thanks for tuning in. I'm glad it's not 11 o'clock for you for a change. Smoky Slate, this is 5 1/4 by 4. And then I've got a piece of white, which is 5 by 3 3/4. So for this project, you will need a blending brush, black ink, Pool Party, or any color of blue will work, and of course some Stampin' Blends to color in the grumpy pea. So I will be using, for the grumpy pea, I'm going to use Granny Apple Green, and I'm also going to use a little bit of Smoky Slate. All right, so before we get started, I'm just going to show you quickly how I make these little frames. So this, I just cut out a Smoky Slate, and I took dies from the Nested Essential die pack, and all I did was I cut out a piece of Smoky Slate by nesting these 2 dies together, and then I just used a little piece of washi tape to keep them from sliding around, and that's how I cut out this frame. So if you don't have dies that nest to make a little frame, then don't worry about it. The card is super cute with or without the frame, so it doesn't really matter. All right, I'm going to get that out of the way and we will get started. So on the piece of 5 by 3 3/4, we're going to stamp our grumpy little pea in Tuxedo Black. And I'm going to put him, I'm going to try to, oops, I just smudged my, oh, I'm off to a good start. I just smudged my paper. All right, I'm flipping it over and I'm starting again. So I'm going to stamp this grumpy little pea almost in the middle, but just a smidge higher than the middle would be. All right, get him out of the way. And then I'm going to take my dark Granny Apple Green on the bullet tip, and I'm going to give him a little bit of darker color on his eyebrows to give him that angry eye look. And then I'm going to switch over to the brush tip, and I'm just going to add a little bit of darker green around the top of his head, just for a bit of shading. But you don't have to shade if you don't want to. It's totally up to you. Now I'm going to go over everything. Oh, hey Sherry, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to go over everything with my light Granny Apple Green. And typically what I find, just to get the colors blended the best, is going over everything twice. So I'm just gonna layer over a bit more color where I've added that dark green just to blend that in a bit. And right now, to me, it doesn't look very blended, but I know once it dries, I'll be happier with the end result. So I'm gonna leave it. If you add too much color, you do risk the lines bleeding or the color bleeding outside of the lines, and I don't wanna do that. So now what I'm gonna do is just grab my Pool Party and my blending brush, and I'm gonna pick up a little bit of the ink, and I'm gonna take a little bit off on the case, just so it's not too dark. And I'm going to add some blue around my grumpy little pea. So I'm not worried about the blue going over the green because it's such a light shade. So I'm just adding a little bit of a blue background. Oh, thanks, Kathy. Thanks for tuning in as well. And you can, I just like to take a little bit of color off on the case, but you can also use paper to do that. It's just your preference. I find if I use the case, then I can keep using that ink. All right, so I've got my background. I'm just gonna blend it out a bit more. A little bit more blue, I think. That's probably pretty good. Get the blending brush out of the way, and I'm gonna close up this ink pad so I don't get ink everywhere. All right, so I've got the sentiment, Hello Grumpy, and I'm going to stamp that right under the P, just in the basic black again. And then what I'm going to do is add a little bit of color to part of that sentiment. So I'm going to use my dark Granny Apple Green on the bullet tip. I better get this ink out of the way because if you've been watching my lives before, you know that I get ink everywhere. It's just a given. All right, so I'm going to outline in the dark Granny Apple Green just the last bit of the sentiment, just like so. Okay. So now I can go ahead and just glue that down to my Smoky Slate layer, and then I'll glue that to the front of the card base. And once I have everything glued down, I will add the frame around the Grumpy Pea, and I'll use dimensionals to do that. So full disclosure, my family is sleeping. They're sleeping in today. When they wake up, they may forget I'm doing a live, so it's possible that things could get loud. So if that happens, apologies. And I'm also having a little bit of vertigo today, so I'm not 100%, but hopefully I don't mess anything up. Fingers crossed, I'm sure it'll be fine. That's the joys of perimenopause. Spoiler alert, I am in the perimenopause and I've got all sorts of fun symptoms, one of them being dizzy spells. So last year they were exceptionally bad, and then I had a really good stretch where everything was fine, but I'm starting to get it again. So how I typically deal with that is I make sure to eat protein with every meal, at least 30 grams, which is actually hard for me to do. So I try to do that, and then just always have a carb and a fat. So I'm trying to manage all these fun symptoms with a whole food proper diet. But let's be honest, I really love things like Hawkins cheesies and ice cream, so that is a bit of a struggle. So I think I've been letting things go for too long, and my body's saying, not today, Kate, get back to the healthy eating. So starting today, that's my plan. Oh, Chrissy, do you get the dizzy spells too, or just hitting the lovely perimenopause stage of life? So I'm adding some dimensionals, but I'm cutting them in half. So if you have mini dimensionals, they will probably work just fine. but the big ones are a little bit too wide for my frame. So I'm just going to cut them in half, which is easy enough to do. And I want to get the dimensionals around the corners or close to the corners, and I would like some supporting pieces on the bottom and sides of the frame as well. I've got all these tiny little pieces now. Hi Leona, thanks for tuning in. So if any of you are crafting along, I would really love to see what you end up making. And if you don't have this set, use whatever you have. All right, I think I'm good for dimensionals. So now I'm going to just pop these backs off. Oops, I missed one. All right, got one. And then I'm going to just stick this frame right over my grumpy little pea. Just like so. So the last thing I want to do is add a layer to the inside of the card. And I typically like to stamp something on the inside of the card. Otherwise, to me, it looks a little bit naked. So I'm just going to add a couple leaves, and then I will color them in with some light Granny Apple Green. Hey Lisa, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, Grumpy is really cute. He's completely the reason I ended up with this stamp set. Just so cute. All right, so adding a little bit of color, and I'm not going to do any shading. I'm just going to color in these leaves. If you wanted to do some shading, then I would typically add some darker Granny Apple Green along the crease of the leaf, just where that little black line is. And then maybe on the bottom of the leaf I do a little bit, and then I would just blend it over with my light. But I'm not feeling that fancy today. Hey Helen, thanks for tuning in all the way from New Zealand. I really appreciate everybody who takes the time out of their day to tune in live and chat with me while I am crafting. And keep me on track, because today my brain is just not there. All right, so this goes in the inside, and card project number 1 is done. Well, I'm sorry to hear you get vertigo too, Chris. It's kind of a funny thing, because when I had a family doctor, he had no idea that vertigo might be a sign of perimenopause, but I ended up seeing a naturopath, and that was really helpful. So I hope that you can manage yours as well. All right, card number 1. Simple. The most challenging thing is the frame. If you don't have nesting dies, leave the frame out and the card is just as cute. All right, I'm going to throw that out of the way and roll up my sleeves for project number 2. So this one, I've used the peas that have the little birthday hats and the happy birthday sentiment. The card design, I got this out of the catalog, page 22. One of their templates includes all these little circles, so I thought that would be really cute for a happy birthday card. And I've got lots of different colors in there. I can't remember the name of this designer series paper. I think it's Lighter Than Air, but I could be wrong. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong. But anyway, lots of fun colors, just perfect for a birthday card. So I used the Stylish Shapes dies to cut out all the circles. So and then I've also cut out a bigger circle in white just for stamping and the sentiment. So this piece is Azure Afternoon, and this is going to be for my inside, and it's 5 1/4 by 4. I've got a piece of white that's, wait a minute, I'm missing a piece of white. That's okay. So this is going to go on the inside of my card, but I need to cut another piece of white, and I will add that. But I don't think I'm going to do any cutting while we're doing the live, so that's all right. Oh, thanks, Sherry, lighter than air. So this is Azure Afternoon. This is 3 1/4 by 5 1/2. Wait a minute. This is my white piece. Oh my goodness. All right. No, this is right. I'm sorry. My brain is not working. So this is my white piece for the inside, and I've cut it just a little bit shorter, so you're going to see a little bit of the Azure Afternoon border. That'll be for the inside. This is for the front, 3 1/4 by 5 1/2, and all I'm going to do with this piece is I'm going to glue it right to the card front. So go ahead and do that. And yes, Carissa, I know what you're thinking. I'm scribbling. I'm a glue scribbler. And Carissa pointed that out to me a little while back, and I think it describes my glue technique perfectly. All right, so I've just glued that piece down to the front of my card base, and then I'm going to stick down my circles, just in a random pattern. Doesn't really matter, whatever makes you happy. And of course, our designer series paper is typically double-sided, so you can pick whatever side you want. Good morning, Marianne, thanks for tuning in. Hi, Ellen, thanks for tuning in. All right, now I'm just gonna commit. I'm gonna glue these randomly, and wherever they land, that's where they're going. That's where they're gonna stay. All right. Last little circle. And I'm going to throw that right here. Okay. So that's out of the way. And we can go ahead and do some stamping. I'm going to need a little scrap piece for my little stamps, or my little faces, which I need to just grab out of here. All right. So I'm going to stamp this little pea that's got the birthday hat in Tuxedo ink on some scrap paper. And I want 2 of them. And before I put this away, I'm going to stamp another one on the bottom corner of my inside white layer. And then I'm just going to grab my peas in a pod that have the little birthday hat on them. So cute. And I'm going to stamp that on the edge of my white circle. And before I close up my stamp set, I will stamp the sentiment as well, and I'm just going to do that to the right of my peas in a pod. Okay. So for these peas, I've got some different colors. I'm going to do the peas in lemon lime twist. And then I'll do the pea shell in the darker green, which is the granny apple. And then I also want to add some pink cheeks. So I'm going to do that first, and I'm going to use dark bubble bath. Hey Shannon, thanks for tuning in. And I'm just going to add little pink cheeks on each one of these little peas. And then I'm going to color over in my light lemon lime twist. And I'm just going to use the brush tip. So these, the top and middle pea, their teeth are showing. So I'm not going to color in their teeth. I'm going to leave those white. All right. Now you can go ahead if you like and add a little bit of shading to your peas. I'm not going to do that, but you certainly can if you like to blend in your colors. Oh, I got so many peas to color. It's a lot. Which is the reason why I don't think I'm going to get into some shading. It's a lot of coloring. Okay, so before I put away my lemon lime twist, I am going to just add a little bit of a lighter green background behind my peas in a pod. And that actually just sparked my memory that I forgot one step in card project number 1. So I'm going to get back to that. I knew I was going to forget something today. Hopefully that's it. It's not a big deal, but I'll show you exactly what I forgot to do with card project number 1. So I had a Smoky Slate blend that I forgot to use, and all I forgot to do was I just wanted to add a little bit of ground underneath his feet so he wasn't floating. So apologies for skipping back to project number 1. Hi Pam, thanks for tuning in. Okay, that's all I forgot to do, just adding a little bit of ground under his feet. All right, moving on. All right, my peas are colored in. I do not need my lemon lime twist anymore, and then now I'm going to flip over to my Granny Apple Green. So with the bullet tip, I'm going to color in the top of the pea pod with the dark Granny Apple Green, and then the rest of the pea pod I'm going to color in with the light Granny Apple Green. I'm just going to use the brush tip. I'm not adding any shading, but if you wanted to, there's a little bit of lines on the pea that would be perfect to add some dark color to. And by the lines, I just mean these little creases in the pea pod. Okay, so now we need to color in their birthday hats. And I'm going to do that in 3 colors. I'm going to start by adding a little bit of the bubble bath to one of the hat layers. And then I'm bringing in a light Azure Afternoon. I'm going to add a little bit more color. And then I'm going to add in Berry Burst. And these little strips are pretty tiny, so the bullet tip is probably your best bet. I am ignoring any comments because I'm focusing on my coloring, so my apologies. And then I think I'm just going to add some color with the Berry Burst around the little pom-pom part of the hat. Okay. I still need a little bit more color. There we go. All right, now I think I've got it all. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to take my dark lemon lime twist, and I'm going to do the same thing with the sentiment. I'm just going to outline the P part of happy, just like that. And then I need to fussy cut these guys out, but I didn't want to have everybody watching me painstakingly cut out pieces, so I've done that ahead of time. So the little P's, they're just fussy cut out. This sentiment, I'm going to pop up with some dimensionals. Excuse me. And I'm just going to throw that right on the front of the card. Okay, just like so. And then I'm going to add my single P's. I'll put one here. And then I'm going to glue the other one just at the top of this sentiment circle. All right, while I have my glue out, I might as well get my inside layer stuck down. And this is the same width as the Azure Afternoon layer, and we're just going to have a border on the top and bottom of this inside layer. All right, so far so good. I don't think I'm forgetting anything yet for card project number 2, but I guess I'm not quite done, so fingers crossed. It's so quiet in my house when everybody's sleeping. I know my husband and son stayed up late watching movies last night, and I just don't have the capacity to do that because after 9:30 I'm so ready for bed. Okay, so this card needs some twine and some rainbow back dots. So we'll start with the twine. And all I did for this card was tied the 3 colors around the very top of the card. All right, so I'm just lining that up on the inside. I'm going to turn my card over, and then I'm going to tie it in a knot. If I give myself enough string, I should be able to do this no problems, but I do have my reverse tweezers handy, so I can keep that knot tight. All right, so I want the knot just at the edge of that Azure Afternoon. That's where I want to put it, but you can put yours wherever you like. I'm going to grab my reverse tweezers and just hold that knot in place. And then I'm just tying a knot pretty tight. And then you can kind of like train the ends of your twine to hang down. It just takes a little bit of, I like to use the word finagling. I'm sure that's a real word in the Cape Dictionary. Oh, Sherry, you stayed up till 1? Oh my gosh, that's really hard for me to do. I used to be a shift worker before my son was born, and I would stay up till, well, shift would end at 6:30 in the morning, and I never seemed to have a problem with it, but now that I'm in my perimenopause stage of life, I don't think I could do that anymore. All right, that's out of the way, and the last thing for this card is just some rainbow adhesive back dots. So I'm going to use all the colors because I'm very sure all the colors are in my designer series paper. So I'm just going to use my snips to pick up these dots because I am out of putty on my Take Your Pick tool. I just realized that. But you know, I've had this Take Your Pick tool for over 2 years and I have not replaced that putty. So it's just due. It's just due. So I've got 3 on, but I want to add a little bit more color, so I'm going to add some more, and I personally prefer odd numbers with embellishments, so that means I have to add 5. But you do you. Where shall I put this last one? Right here. All right. Project number 2. I am 99% sure I haven't missed any steps on this card. And that's it. Pretty cute. It'll be a good birthday card for a young person. It's lots of fun. Okay. Moving on. Let me get some stuff out of the way. So card 3. Card number 3. This is a Welcome Sweet Pea card, and full disclosure, I do not have baby cards. I just don't. So I'm going to change that. I need to have a variety of all occasion cards in my stash, and this is just the cutest. So I picked the background to be green just because I feel like it's neutral, but if you have a baby that you need to give a card to a family to, pink and blue is just as cute, or any other color, right? But I really love lemon lime and granny apple green together. It's just one of my favorites. Hey Candy, thanks for tuning in. All right, so I think this might be my favorite card out of the 3, but I'm jaded. All right, so pretty simple, nothing too fancy, but there's lots of pieces. Okay. Try not to lose any. And I'm just gonna flip my, I got some notes with all the measurements so I can tell you guys. I'm just gonna flip pages. So I have got the Lemon Lime Twist card base. And this one is 4 1/4 by 11, and I've scored it at 5 1/2 on the 11-inch side. Then I have got a Granny Apple Green layer. This is 2 3/4 by 4. And then this is our white layer for stamping, and that's 2 5/8 by 3 7/8. So we're gonna stamp on the white, we're gonna layer on the Granny Apple Green, and we're gonna throw it on the card front. But first, we're gonna build the card front with all our strips of paper. So this is just the Brights Color Designer Series paper in the annual catalog, and I've cut 6 strips that are 6 by 1 1/2, and then I've got 2 smaller strips that are 3 by 1 1/2. All right, so I'm just gonna start by kind of arranging where I want them to go. I wanna make sure that I've got enough length with the angle that I choose to use. And you definitely don't have to use all 6 strips. It really depends what you want to do with your card. I think I'm just going to raise that up a bit. And I am going to use all 6 strips. So you can choose to use your liquid glue, or if you're brave and you're not worried about placement, you can use your Stampin' Seal, which I think I'm going to try. I very rarely use Stampin' Seal, but let's see how it goes. It's the right width for these strips, and it might be a little less messy, so we'll just see. All right, so I'm going to line up this strip at an angle, and I'm going to angle it at the top edge of my card front and then down, just like so. And then I think what I'm going to try is just adding a layer of the Stampin' Seal right beside this layer. And then I'm going to grab another strip in a different pattern, and I'm just going to butt it up to that first strip so everything's flush. Oh yeah, the Stampin' Seal worked pretty good. Maybe I'm too nervous to use the Stampin' Seal, but it does seem to be pretty convenient, right? I'm sorry guys, I gotta move my paper up. You can't see what I'm doing. Oh man, okay. All right, so I'm gonna add a little strip of Stampin' Seal. I'm gonna grab another strip in the opposite pattern. And I'm just laying that down flush against that first strip. And then I'm gonna just keep repeating this process. This is such an easy technique and I rarely do it. I don't know why. It's cute. Carissa, the gray mat is just a silicone mat. You can, I'm sure it's in the annual catalog. This is super handy for keeping everything. It's just easy for gluing, because if you glue on this mat, the glue literally just rubs off. And it's no muss, no fuss. So that's really handy. And another handy thing about the silicone mat is, I'm not sure if you use Stampin' Seal, but for me, sometimes it's hard to get the tape rolling. And you can just start it on the silicone mat and get everything moving smoothly, and it works like a charm. All right, last one. Now this one, I'm gonna be really careful to keep that Stampin' Seal right up against my last layer, because I don't want any stickiness on the front of the card. All right, perfect. And then I'm going to add one more layer just at the bottom edge. And I'm going to do that on the top edge as well, but I'm going to fold the card in half so I don't get any Stampin' Seal on the back side of the card. Okay, now I'm just going to open my card up on the inside, and I'm going to trim off all that excess strips of designer series paper. And I'm just careful to follow along the edge of the card, but not actually cut into that card base, which I've been known to do when I do this. So I try to be pretty careful, and I find using the Stampin' Seal is a lot easier to trim the card than using the multi-purpose glue. It keeps the blade of my scissors a little bit cleaner. One more piece to snip, and there is our card front. Oops, I got little pieces everywhere. Okay, so the top, I'm not at the best angle, but that actually probably will not bother me since the top isn't at the same angle either. But if it does bother you, then you could certainly use a ruler to help keep everything at the right angle. But this is fine. It will not faze me. And to be honest, I really doubt that anyone who receives your cards even notices the flaws that we would normally notice, right? I think we're our own worst critics. Okay, so on my piece of white, and this again, it's 2 5/8 by 3 7/8, I'm gonna add some greenery in the top corner and in the bottom corner. Now, if your stems overlap, that's no problem, because we're going to cover that piece up. And then on a scrap piece of paper, I'm going to stamp our little baby pea. And what did I forget to do? Oh yes, I need to add my sentiment. So I should have stamped this first, so I had room, but I can still fit it in. Now, if I couldn't fit it in, and I forgot to stamp that first, then all I would do is flip this around and I would start over. All right, so I'm just gonna stamp this Welcome Sweet Pea in the bottom left corner, just like so. Okay. So all we need for blends is a little bit of pink for the baby's cheeks. This one I'm going to use a dark flirty flamingo, and I'm just going to add some tiny little pink cheeks underneath the eyes. I'm going to color in my sweet pea with my lemon lime twist. So I will do a little bit of shading, and I'm just going to do that around the right side of the pea and where that pea meets the shell at the bottom. And then I'm going to come in with my, well, that's Granny Apple Green. I'm going to come in with my light lemon lime twist. And I'm just going to go over all of the rest of the pea, fill in his little pea face, and then blend in where I added that darker lemon lime. All right. Now before I put away my lemon lime twist, I'm going to add a little bit of a, I guess a green halo behind, or not behind, just around the whole image itself. And then when I fussy cut this out, I won't have any white edges, which I like. If I get a little bit of this lemon lime green into the pod of this little pea, it's not a big deal because my Granny Apple Green is darker and it's not going to look different. It'll just blend it in. Okay, so now I need my Granny Apple Green. I am going to start with my dark on the bullet tip, and I'm going to fill in the leaves. And then I'm just going to also add a little bit of dark Granny Apple Green to these lines. While I have my green out, I'm going to add some green to the leaves. I'm just going to follow those black lines and part of the curve of the leaf. Now I'm certainly not an expert shader, but I do think that our Stampin' Blends are pretty foolproof. So you don't need to be a coloring expert to make things look really nice. All right, I don't need the dark green for the moment. I'm just going to grab my light Granny Apple Green, and we're going to color in the rest of the little pea pod and the rest of the leaves. So when you're blending, if you're dark and light, again, if they don't look like they're blending properly, just go over it again with your light and it should smooth out. However, just be aware you don't want to add too much ink at once, so you might need to give it a minute to dry before you add more layers just to blend your colors in. Otherwise, your ink might leach outside of your black lines. All right, so one more thing I want to do is just add something to the inside layer. So I'm going to stamp some leaves just in the corner, like I did on the first card. Just like a couple leaves in the corner, and I'll quickly color those in. I'll just use the light for this one, just for time saving measures. All right, there we go. So I've got the inside piece, I've got our background ready to go, and this little image I've already pre-fussy cut, so you don't have to watch me cut that. But for those of you who don't do a lot of fussy cutting, my tip for you is to move your paper with your scissors, not your scissors, right? If that makes any sense. So when you fussy cut, if you move the paper versus your blade, you're going to get a cleaner cut. And fussy cutting takes a little bit of practice. Some people love it, some people hate it. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. Sometimes I prefer fussy cutting because it seems quicker than getting out my die cutting machine and dies. So I do not mind it. Now I'm just gluing our white layer to our granny apple green layer. And I am going to add color around the sentiment, and I think I'll do that in the dark lemon lime twist. I'm going to use my bullet tip, and this time I'm going to just go over the entire sentiment. There, that looks really cute. There's one thing that I need for this card, and that is Winkostella. So you probably won't see the glitter on the camera, but in person you will definitely see a shimmer to this card. So I'm going to add Winkostella to the leaves. And then I'm going to add Winkostella to the pea pod, just around the little baby face. And if you love glitter, you can Winkostella the sentiment as well. It's very subtle and I really like it. I'm going to add some shimmer to the inside of my card as well. All right. Now I'm going to hold this up, but I can't say for sure you're actually going to see any shimmer on that. It's really subtle from the camera view. It's hard to see, but in person you can see it. Okay, so I'm going to pop up my little baby with dimensionals, the inside of this card. All right, I'm going to do 3. I don't know if you needed 3, but I'm heavy on dimensionals typically. All right, just so right in the middle, and I'm going to cover up the 2 stems. So like I said, if you overlap them, it's no problem. And then I'm going to pop this up in the middle of my card. So for me, typically, I always put dimensionals in the corner. If it's a fairly long piece, I'm going to put dimensionals on the side as well. And I'm going to stick one in the middle, just so it doesn't sag. But I don't think this one will sag. It's not that big of a piece of cardstock, so it should be all right. All right, almost done. So this goes right in the middle. And then I'm going to add some ombre matte dots. These are new in the catalog, and they might be my favorite. I love them. Oops. All right, I'm going to put one there. A teeny tiny ombre dot there. And, oh my goodness, I almost lost that one. This one I'm going to put right here. All right. So here's the front of the card. And the last step, of course, is to add the inside layers. So in June, I did a Seaside Wishes card class at home. And I didn't include the inside layer in that card class. And that's been itching at me. I don't like it. So going forward, if you sign up for any of my card classes at home, there's going to be inside layers, because it turns out I'm a layer queen. I love layers, and a card doesn't feel finished to me unless I've got that inside layer. So I thought I could get away with it because cardstock keeps going up in price, but it turns out I can't. I need my layers. Thanks, Cheryl. I appreciate your comments. All right, this is card project number 3. So let's grab all the cards we did today. All right, so this was card number 1. They're grumpy. The reason I got this set in the first place, because it's just the cutest angry little pea I've ever seen. Our happy birthday card. Super fun and colorful. It's going to be great for a kid's birthday. And I really do like the color in this Baker's Twine. And then this one is my favorite. I love it, but it's probably because I really like Lemon Lime Twist and Granny Apple Green together. So that is it for June's free online card class. I will be doing another free online card class the last Sunday of July. I'm pretty sure I know what stamp set I'm going to use, so stay tuned. I'm going to post it on Facebook, and if you subscribe to my newsletter, you'll see that in there as well. All right, I'm going to flip the camera around. Oh man, I keep giving you a view of my messy kitchen. So in the future, I will be moving into, I guess, a craft room, which is actually our spare bedroom. So I'm going to move into that room. I'm going to make it my craft room, and I'm going to get out of the kitchen because I think it's driving my husband crazy that I've taken up so much space, and I haven't moved out of the kitchen in over 2 years. So my collection keeps growing, but my kitchen is not getting any bigger. So there's going to be a change. Thanks, Pam. I appreciate that. And yeah, no kidding, Chris. I do need a dedicated craft room, but it won't be as spacious, but it's going to have to do. Thanks, Marianne. Thanks for tuning in. So thanks, everybody who tuned in live. If you're catching these on replay, thanks for taking the time out of your day. I hope you enjoyed these cards. I would really love to see what you make, so please share what you make. Oh, thanks, Mona. Thanks for tuning in. And everybody have a really happy Sunday. And if you are in Canada, then I hope you are enjoying your long weekend and that you have some fun plans for Canada Day tomorrow. See you guys, well, tomorrow for my next live. Have a great day.